Hello, today is May 18th, 2022. Trading is closed. We always begin with our disclaimer, so let us do that. It's my trading plan for tomorrow, May the 19th, 2022. Just remember, I can be wrong. With moves like this, the market's pretty risky. If you choose to trade, please do so at your own risk. We always start by going over our calls. We look for the pattern with the early high, which is this, and tomorrow should have the early low. Yesterday was a strong rally all day. We made the case for this high holding. We said if we gapped over it, it could continue, but if we didn't gap over it, all of yesterday's gains should be lost. Seemed like kind of a crazy call at the time, but that's what happened. What we didn't say is that there's support under this low, and it usually holds. Well, we went under the price, but support didn't hold. Doesn't have to hold. So that's kind of weak. We'll come back to this in just a minute. During the day, MEJT gave an ultimate sell signal and an ultimate buy signal. The ultimate sell signals paid off. Ultimate buy signal gives us a target 40.2676. Should print at some time. There's no time limit. But normally you don't have to wait long. Now when you get an ultimate buy and ultimate sell in the same pattern, the overwhelming majority of the time you don't go anywhere. Most of the time, the rest of the morning just stays pretty flat. So just as support normally held, as I told you in the last chart and it didn't, normally this doesn't lead to big moves, and here it did. When we dropped here, once again, MEJT said it's not for keeps. Says we'll retrace the 39.5612. Preferred time frame is tomorrow. Now if you gap down smartly, and futures are already down smartly, the number stays on the table, but not the time. But if you don't gap down smartly, the system calls for 39.5612. Just remember, in times of strong impulsive moves, that's when these things fail. We had this big drop, but just as yesterday's big rally couldn't manage a close over these highs, had to trade over them promptly for the rally to continue. This big drop didn't close, here's the close, didn't close under all these lows. Last hour or so didn't make any progress at all. Now if you gap and undercut these lows tomorrow, it doesn't mean a thing. But if you don't, it's actually a positive pattern, because you didn't get followed through in the afternoon. Furthermore, we had this steep decline and we closed over this trend line. And to top it all off, you can have a cup, you can interpret this one way as a cup with a down-sloping handle. And once you break over this slope significantly, this isn't enough for me. This doesn't have to break over this slope, but if you do break over this slope, it's a positive pattern. The target's to retrace all of this drop. Seems kind of hard to believe, but you never know. And furthermore, we haven't done that yet. We opened down here, which is where futures are. All that positive stuff goes away, and you can very likely keep on dropping. We were hoping this low is going to hold. So far, it still has, and I'm going to stick with it. Someone else's system says we're going to hit this 41.36 level. If we undercut this, he's wrong. Now, what you really wanted to do was to get confirmation of this as the low. To do that, you had to close over these highs, which we did yesterday, and then trade 1 cent past yesterday's close. That didn't happen, so we still don't have confirmation that this low is going to hold. You really want to go over this high and make it stick. Let's take a look at the longer term picture. We had a demarked buy signal on the sequential. These things mark areas of lows. They haven't been too good on tops, but they haven't been too bad on lows. We now have bar 11 of a combo. When you have a sequential sell and a combo sell, sequential buy and combo buy pretty close together, it adds confidence to the move. So a few more days of weakness to get bar 13, which can finish early, but confirm that we're in the area of the low. Tells you about the time, doesn't tell you about the price. Well, this is the count I had. Doesn't break any rules. It's not the only way to count it. Is there any way this blow-off could be the end of the drop? Looks pretty improbable, but there's a count that says it is. I think it's a forced count. Forced counts I just assume are wrong, but all the fibs work and it doesn't break any rules. This could be gray A, gray B. Instead of ending here, it could end here. And gray C equals gray A right there. So if this is the end and we move up smartly, which doesn't look likely as I'm recording this, but if we move up smartly, C equals A right at the low. And that's not all. Look at gray B. You have an ABC for A of B. You take the height of A, then there's ABC, and the height of ABC is exactly equal. C equals A. And then if you look at gray C, if that's an ABC, and that's A, and that's B, and that's C, it's a direct hit. So you got multiple A equals C patterns. The most head-scratching est of which is that right at today's low, A equals C. So if all this action was for naught and we just forget about how badly we crashed, and this holds, which hasn't happened yet, but if it holds, you can count ABC on multiple time frames right at the low. Doesn't mean it's the right count, but we did break over this line. We haven't broken under these lows. Futures are down so much it shouldn't be too hard to do and kill the whole idea. But if something happens and we open up here, that's a major low and the target's to retrace all of today's losses. Seems kind of hard to believe, but we have the higher targets, and who can say? Tomorrow's pattern has the early low. We could still gap up. Typically, it's a rally day with a final hour high. If it's weak instead, more weakness tends to follow in days to come. There are new higher targets. Unless we gap down smartly, which is possible because futures are down. Unless we gap down smartly, we look for 39, 56, 12 favored to print tomorrow, and ultimately 40, 26, 76 should be seen. There's no time limit, but normally you don't have to wait long. The day-long drop couldn't manage a close under midday lows, so either we gap and promptly undercut today's low, or we see higher prices even if we don't close higher. It's possible to interpret today's action as a cup of downsloping handle. If we break the angle of descent of the handle convincingly, the target's to retrace all of today's losses. It doesn't have to happen in a day, and we haven't broken that angle yet. I've been expecting the recent low to hold, but we still haven't gotten confirmation by closing over a meaningful high of the prior decline and then getting a print at least 1 cent over that close. Even if the recent low fall, sentiment indicators suggest we're near a low in terms of time. That's time. Doesn't tell us about the price. So this looks pretty ugly, but we didn't get the follow through. We're way down here. If we leave all that behind us and gap up here tomorrow, targets to retrace all this drop, and you've got an ABC right at the low. Now that hasn't happened yet, and maybe it won't. I'm just planning ahead, because if we come down here, I'm not convinced that the recent low is going to hold at all. But I don't know how we're going to open tomorrow. If we gap down here, I'm not too anxious to catch the knife, the falling knife. But if we move up here by some kind of miracle, quote unquote, I still think we made a low and we're going higher. So we'll have to see how we open. The pattern has the early low, and that's today's call.